the variable reward of the slot machine, which is in the history of capitalism, one of the greatest machines ever to extract money from people. Like it's not even close. 80% of Las Vegas revenue is from slot machines. And now we hold it in our hands because instead of the variable reward is, I check my phone, it's like how many times have you guys done this? You open your phone, you check your Gmail. Did anybody email me? Not that it matters. You check your Telegram, you check your WhatsApp, you check your notifications on Twitter, and then you go, oh, let me go to Drudge Report. Let me see what news happened. And since the last 5 minutes I checked, right? It's the same dynamic. It's the variable reward. So with that thing in your pocket, you're going up against the world's highest paid engineers, UX designers, and behavioral psychologists. And that's why when that thing's in your pocket, you're not performing on cognitive tasks. Thoughts?
All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. We've got the NIA boys here today. Boys, welcome back. Jack. Well, no, actually, Jack, you were here last week, and you also had a birthday. That's what I was supposed to say.
Happy birthday, dude.
Happy birthday to Jack.
You doxed
Cheers,
yourself.
Boys.
Yeah, man. I ain't letting the world know.
Yeah, I've strung at least 3-4 times. I've tried to sneak that one in, like I'm going to book a flight for him or something.
Dude. You ain't sending me nothing, dude.
We've definitely probably recorded on your birthday and you just never told us. He keeps a secret. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. But Jack, how was the birthday, mate? You did anything fun?
Great, yeah. We had a bunch of people around, loads of kids. It was like a 1-to-1 adult to kid ratio. That's the stage of my life I'm at right now.
I saw that.
Time.
You know how you go up and down with birthdays?
The beer in one hand, baby in the other.
Yes,
exactly.
So I'd love to ask Jack about this. Jack, you know the phases of birthdays, right? 20s, early 20s, you want to blow it out. You want to go to Vegas. You want to go to Ibiza.
Pub golf for me. That was my first.
Pub golf.
That was my first 5 years.
Did you ever dress up like?
Oh
golf?
Yeah. Properly.
Wait, what is this? What is this thing?
Oh,
pub golf. So you basically you go to 18 different pubs.
Like 18 holes.
18 holes. And you have predetermined drinks at each pub.
So one drink at each.
We used to do these we used to have very complicated. It got more and more complicated over time. So you would have a caddy. So you would have to monitor somebody else, and you'd do minutes would be a par. So you'd have like 8 minutes for par in the pub, and anything you come under par would go on your scorecard.
This is so British.
Yeah.
This is so
it's incredibly British. Yeah.
Were you wearing some crazy outfits?
Yeah, the flat cap, the what do you call the golf pattern, the diamond check pattern.
Oh,
you wear golf gear when you do it. Yeah.
Is this so everyone knows that when you roll in, the bartender knows? It's like a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, bunch of practice.
That's incredible. So you did that for a number of years. I think you said 5. And then, you get to like late 20s, early 30s, you start caring less about your birthday. But I guess now it's nice, right? To celebrate. It's a reason to get everybody together. So it's funny how there's like this weird U shape of caring about birthdays.
Yeah, I guess so.
Then you start hitting milestones, right? Like when you hit 40.
More significant numbers, yeah.
Anyways.
Oh, wait, how old were you this weekend? 35?
35, yeah.
Smashing it. Well done, mate. You made it to 35.
You're
not dead or in jail, so you did all right, man.
Yeah. I'm doing all right.
All right, well, should we get on with it, boys? There was a meme of the week, but I just realized that because I've got a new Mac here, I didn't give permission, on system preferences. Didn't give permission to share my screen.
You didn't permission yourself.
Yeah, I didn't permission myself, and I have to restart Zoom if we have to do that. So I can either share it with you guys or...
not funny enough for that.
Yes, let's just leave it. All right. Anyway, but the joke was that Jack and I both shared the same clip in our group chat, not realizing that he had already sent it before. But
and
anyway,
they're both British. They're both British
jokes.
Yeah,
they're very British joke as well. All right, so boys, we've got a lot to talk about today. Jack's going to give us an NFT update a little bit later. Some cool stuff that's been going on there. George Max, Kale versus Cocaine Phone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger breakdown. But we'll start off with our boy, Dave Trader. Portnoy buys back Barstool for $1. This is incredible. I mean, one of the best deals in history, Trung. Do you want to tell us the breakdown, mate?
This is, okay, I want to get instant reactions, though. So, Bilal, when you saw this happen and you're like wrapping your head around, oh my God, he just got 100% of Barstool back for basically $1, right? At this point, it's just like, it's a ceremonial figure. What were your thoughts? My thought was, this is such a gangster move.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Obviously, you dig into it. The the upside of Barstool is probably less than it would be because they can't do their own gambling app, and they probably can't take on a lot of gambling advertisers for X amount of time, which is big money. So the company itself may have been capped. Davey Portnoy, who's already cleared 100 mil. So let me actually walk through. Let me get your first impressions quickly, and then we'll walk through it. So Bilal, what did you think?
I was the same because from what I understood, they sold it for hundreds of millions, maybe 500 in the past. You can confirm that after. But just to already get that win and then come back around where he's probably, he was probably operating independently enough. But there's always that thing. Anyone we know who sold a company is like, oh, yeah, I'm having a good time inside a HubSpot. I'm having a good time inside of whatever. And deep down, they're just vesting out, and it's understandable. But after that, for him to be able to take it back, take full control, is pretty incredible. And like you said, he's not going to be able to sell it, I guess, because he's going to have to give 50% of that to Penn in the future. So that is kind of an interesting angle as well, where he's going to have to basically pass it down to his kids or something like that. But yeah, Jack, what about you, mate?
Yeah, same. I mean, perfect upside in every scenario, this really, right? It's like you get the ability to undo something, which based on his reaction seems like he's very happy to undo. Like being the things that made Barstool what it was and probably made it enjoyable or maximally enjoyable to work on were all being stifled under the new terms and conditions. Yeah, it feels like you got complete life-changing generational wealth out of that acquisition, and now you can just go back to doing whatever you want to do. It's like it's the best of both worlds. It's the best. Yeah. So fair play.
Yeah, Trung, what about you, mate? You got more?
Yeah, I can break down the numbers for you guys. So the deal. Well, I want to say this first. I want to preface this. I think we collectively always talk about content and commerce, right? We're like, oh my God, you do great media, you just shove it down the distribution. Like this is Jack's MO. He knows this. I'm beginning to revisit it, right? I think we were a little bit too palms out on the model. And I think two things happened. The two examples we always use was Mr. Beast and Barstool. And in the past month, we saw Mr. Beast is now suing Beast Burger. Beast Burger is suing Mr. Beast. That relationship has broken up. We discussed that and said, okay, well, freshly cooked food, especially hamburger, which doesn't travel well, that leaves a lot of space for problems to happen. Whereas Feast and Bowls is chocolate bar business, easy, stack it in a Walmart, right? But then you look at this Barstool deal, and it looked like the biggest home run ever. So 3 years ago, Penn Gaming, which owns casinos and betting apps and gambling licenses for sports, they're trying to cash in on this massive legalization of sports gambling gold rush that happened 2019-ish. So that period was this big gold rush for everyone to get in on the legalization of sports gambling. And just to give you an idea, like DraftKings and FanDuel, I'm sure a lot of listeners have used it. I'm sure you guys have used it. Those are the big guns in the game. And people have tried to enter, like Fox with Fox Sports. They actually released Fox Bets, which was a betting app, but they recently shut it down. Just to give an idea of like, it might not be so easy to break into this game. So I'll add one last point to that is, I think we're a little bit too bullish on how easy it is to do content and commerce. And obviously super regulated industries, maybe not so easy. Bilal, you kind of alluded to it. Like Portnoy has been involved in a couple of controversies, including a hit piece from Insider and one from New York Times. And this actually materially impacted Penn Gaming, which is a publicly traded company. They had to get licenses from states. And part of the process of getting gaming licenses is the regulators look at all the key players. So I'll say this before we keep on talking about the deal, but what do you guys think about that? Is like, were we too general on the content and commerce? And if you have good media, you can do anything through that distribution, as in maybe regulated spaces isn't as doable, and fresh foods. Like there's some nuance here. It's just not that simple.
I want to get Jack's take on this, but just wanted to add one other piece there was, from my understanding, ESPN, what kind of triggered it was ESPN have said to, what's the company that bought FanDuel, that bought Portnoy's business? Penn, sorry. And they were going to use them for their sports book or something, right?
Yeah, so we should talk about it. Okay.
Just to mention that, because I think that was relevant
Let me
here.
run it through super quickly then, right? I'm going out of order, so apologies to the listeners that are just laughing. They're probably still laughing about our earlier jokes, but now that you're done laughing, let me explain exactly the contours of this deal. So Penn Gaming, which we just described, got into partnership with Barstool Sports 3 years ago. They paid $550 million-ish in 2 transactions over the past 3 years. So the main purpose of that was to get in front of Barstool's massive audience of sports fans. And that essentially what's going on with this deal is that ESPN, as Bilal mentioned, so the number one player in sports, ESPN is going through a number of problems that we've discussed in previous episodes. Their streaming business is losing money hand over fist. Their parks business is not doing as well. And their linear cable business, which is still spitting out cash primarily from ESPN and people paying for the cable bundle for live sports, but that is in terminal decline. Like in 10 years, ESPN will be a completely different business than it is today. Everyone knows that. So ESPN kind of needs cash. So they're licensing out their name. So Penn Gaming is now paying ESPN $1.5 billion over 10 years. So $150 million a year. So you can think that from Penn's point of view as a marketing expense. And if you actually tease it out, so they paid for Barstool $550 million, and I think every year they lost close to $50 million. So $700 million, call it over 3 years. They're paying about $200+ million a year to own Barstool. And that basically, that money they're spending is now just going to ESPN. But ESPN Bet, which is the gambling app now, is going to have way more eyeballs because of how much eyeballs ESPN has, right? They're the number one thing. And part of the deal and why Portnoy was able to buy Barstool back for 100% of the company for $1 is that ESPN does not like Dave Portnoy. ESPN does not like Barstool. They had a TV show together like a decade ago, but it lasted 1 week because of speaking to the quote-unquote controversial nature of Barstool. They'll say anything, right? So Penn Gaming basically had a chance to partner with the biggest animal in the sports space, and they're like, part of the condition is like, okay, well, Barstool can't be involved because ESPN hates Barstool, and now that gives Davey Portnoy a ton of leverage. So people ask, like, why didn't Penn just sell Barstool to someone else? Well, it's because this is a talent business. What we're talking about is Dave Portnoy and his crew, like Big Cat. These are the guys you want, right? He could probably kind of watch that. He's like, I don't want to go to like whatever CBS or NBC. So that gave him leverage to get the company back. Bilal, you mentioned it, is the other part of the deal was basically, there's probably 3 parts on Penn's side. And it looks awful from their end, except the ESPN deal is too good not to do, but Penn gets 50% of any future sale. Dave Portnoy has already said, I'm not selling this company in the most hilarious video. Second thing is, they probably have NDAs and non-competes on who he can partner with. I think gambling apps and websites are out the door, and those provide the highest value advertising for Barstool. So again, Barstool as a business might be capped from upside based on where they were with gaming and without it. And then the third part is, I don't think Portnoy and Barstool can say anything negative about Penn, which is fair enough, right? So now that we actually have all the contours of the deal, it took a roundabout way. Let me throw it back to Jack. Jack, what do you think about what we've talked about as media as a distribution? And actually, are there limits to it? And what do you think moving forward will be the real winners with this kind of model?
Sorry, this is maybe not a direct answer, but the one thing that I've always envied about media company like Barstool is you have a constant influx of things to comment on. If you are a sports media company, there is a game happening in, every city in the world at all times in perpetuity, and you've just aligned yourself with the segment of the population that enjoys watching sport. So in my mind, that obviously sports betting is maybe the highest margin sponsor that can come along with that, but it still feels to me like a ridiculously massive opportunity to just the amount of things that is connected to by way of you tapping into a market that people already care about and having a voice that like overlays on top of that, I don't know, that to me is why news or having a way to take something that is already happening and add context to it is the most sustainable form of media business. They seem to have cracked that. You also seem to have a very unique, I don't think there's a number two to Barstool that comes to my mind. I'm not a huge consumer of that type of stuff, but they've like really made themselves a magnet for like the best comedy / sports talent in the world. That moat seems huge. So yeah, I think giving up the possibility of, you know, maybe slightly higher margin advertising business is not the best result, but at the same time, you could just go in so many different directions with this, and they have all this media out there testing sentiment on all these different things at all times. Like they incubated, what's the woman's name who does Call Her Daddy? Like,
yeah.
The guy just gets that stuff, and I think even incubating new media brands is probably going to be one of the big upside plays where we're going to build this podcast up, use our distribution to get it massive, and then, you know, roll it into something else, or Spotify is going to come and buy off it. I don't know. But I feel like they have just, they understand how to make media that resonates, which might not be the highest margin business, but it is so resilient. It's such a robust, especially if it's an internet native thing. Like ESPN is at the other end of that, right? Where they've kind of ran the course on the way they chose to approach that, or they've kind of grown into this kind of immovable object at this point. Barstool is at the very beginning of that journey and just like took steps back from becoming the corporate behemoth that prevented them from doing certain things. So yeah, I think maybe the immediate cash upside is capped from that, but it seems like way more anti-fragile now to me.
And he owns 100%. You can't put a price on total freedom again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the things that I think, yeah, will get tried, launched, failed, whatever else under that mode of operation and leadership is obviously difficult to predict what that will be, but you can imagine much more of that spirit finds its way into the product in the same way we talked about the Elon privatization of Twitter means you can ship 50 features a week, and if it takes the site down, who gives a shit? It's not going to wipe billions of dollars off the chart the next day or the same day or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, it feels like mismatch of personalities, right? Like the people who the skill set it takes to be the CEO of a public company is very different than the pirate. They keep using the word pirate, right? That's the
pirate ship.
Yeah, pirate ship. I feel like this company structure is more aligned with how they operate, and in my mind, that can only lead to good things. Even if there's, you know, limits on some of the partnerships you can strike up, this is going to be they like wrote the playbook for a new style of media, and I think they'll keep doing that.
I mean, you nailed it, right? Spin Chicklets, they released the biggest hockey podcast in the world. I've been on their podcast and I wrote about their product, right? You know this. Like, it might not be a sports gambling app, but they launched a
booze is huge too. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah,
that's
so
huge.
Pink Lemon,
that's huge.
Exactly. Pink Whitney was Spin Chicklets vodka
High
brand.
Noon.
High Noon. They made 100. They got 1 million other options. And actually, this touches on what we talked about the burgers, right? It's like stick to these things that don't need to be delivered fresh, like alcohol, consumables, and merch. If we're being honest, right? But like, I want to add one thing, Jack, to what you said about this is way more consistent with who they are, right? Just give an idea. This was Dave Portnoy's first blog post the day after he bought back Barstool from Penn. He goes, I have an honest question. How fucking dumb are my idiot employees? I literally owned Barstool again for less than 24 hours. They know I'm in town, and literally none of them have showed up to the office today before 10 a.m. This part put me in stitches. Okay, get ready, boys. I've been here since 8 a.m. because I'm old and don't sleep anymore, and was reading all the news articles sucking my cock from buying Barstool back. Dude, so the day after, he writes this. He literally said, Jack, you said something about media. It's like, okay, maybe they're capped on like the sports gambling stuff, but they're so good at media, right?
Yeah.
So his
that's
initial video.
Yeah, that's a
They
great
don't
point. Like
take
the
context.
cap was a trade-off of like what you can say and how outrageous you can be, which is
Oh my
in a way capping
goodness,
your
man.
upside in a different sense, right? Like if Dave Portnoy and company can't behave that way, there's only so much attention they're going to garner, right? So you can get more attention, but maybe you just can't monetize it as outrageously as sports betting. But the more freedom you have to create consistent with your
Trunk's still
instinct,
cracking
shall we
up here.
say,
Raps.
the more
You gotta put
opportunities
that
you can
clip up,
create.
yeah.
Because
Put up
he
that
showed a
clip.
clip of the
Yeah.
office being empty, right? I saw that as
Yeah,
well.
put the blog post, but like, like cross out the part where it says "suck my C." But I've been here since 8 a.m. reading articles about people sucking my C for 5. Dude, I read that and tears started streaming down my eyes. I'm like, Jack, this is why you bought it back. This is
Yeah,
why.
for sure.
Well, can I just add one thing as
Incredible.
well? Trunk, I mean, I don't know how much you guys follow the content, but realistically, has he been? It's not like he's been not being himself for the last few years, right? Like he's still been saying kind of what he wants.
He was
mean-
doing Davey Day Trader, basically like
That's what I
doing
mean.
the most
So
outrageous, potentially SEC violating.
yeah.
things. Like, I mean,
he's been having a good time. Don't get me wrong. And I think my summary on it is
Was
he's
that while
winning
Penn
either
owned
way.
it?
I'm pretty sure, no?
yeah, he
The
did
day
Davey
trader
Day
stuff.
Trader.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I didn't
That
realize
was
that.
during the pandemic. He would wake up and it
What's-
was incredible
He
content.
pulled a
But
letter from a Scrabble
Oh, it's
bag
insane,
and
man.
buying
Stocks only go up. Do you remember that line?
yeah, stonks on the go up. Exactly. Yeah.
And then he had this amazing video. He's in Florida, and
Incredible,
we gotta find this.
fucking
Good. There's a storm happening in Florida, and he's day trading. He's like, David Day Trader doesn't stop for anything. And then he has this old rant about Warren Buffett. He's like, Warren Buffett, great career, but today I am a better investor than Warren Buffett.
Yeah, I mean, he did stop doing that though. I wonder
know.
where that came from.
Yeah.
But
I think that
there
Warren
was like a
Buffett still
million
roars
people a
some.
day watching that shit or something. It
was
was
insane.
insane the amount of attention that was getting. Yeah, it'd be fun to watch, see what they do.
We're the hustle. Just last point, Jack, is Bilal. The hustle when we did trends, we were David Day Trader's first advertiser.
Oh, yeah, I
remember
remember
that,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Oh, dude.
I do
And
They
he
just
remember
told-
that.
advertising the stream. Is that what it
No,
was?
it's brought to you by Trends.com. And he had this random about information. Go
Oh,
to
it was the
Trends
other
for
way
the-
around. Sorry. Yeah. Fair play.
Unbelievable, man.
Oh, smart.
Those were very low quality subs for the startup community.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine.
You
That
know,
was enough.
I also feel like the scrappy advertising stuff or the comedy advertising stuff is more interesting too. Like the type of, what am I trying to think of? Like the comedian podcast, like the stuff they read out, just more entertaining. Like the type of partnerships you can do and get away with if you have like a satirical or comical element to what you're doing
definitely.
is much broader. They can just do all
I'll
sorts of
listen
stupid
to
shit,
ads from
QVC style stuff, and
comedians.
it's, just,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny as hell.
Where you're just like, all right, this is going to be funny content. But I guess to Trunk's point, though, it's it's the probably not the best like sign up quality for
Right,
you guys
right.
as that. But it's like goes both ways. Like getting a boring old ad in a newsletter or like some boring business pod might have like high quality people on paper, but it's the most boring content in the
But
world.
they're not
Someone reading out his
laughing
stuff.
like we did at Portnoy's blog post. Like we
Exactly.
got different senses of humor, people.
Exactly. Well, Drunk, I'm just going to add one thing or kind of reiterate what you said earlier. I think it is kind of what you said about Mr. Beast, like the difference between Feastables and the Mr. Beast burger. Like the difference here is like Penn aligned with this amazing, content brand, and they upselling and making the betting stuff central to all their content there. But at the end of the day, like once someone uses the betting app, I've never used like any of those really, so I don't know how good or bad they are. But ultimately, it has to be like a good app. It has to be like better than FanDuel or DraftKings. And whereas if you're just selling merch, you're selling like a cheap alcohol brand with a new like Happy Dad or whatever. It's kind of like a generic. I mean, they might not like me saying that, but it's a generic kind of hard seltzer or whatever, right? So like that stuff you can kind of just box up a little bit, package it up and sell it. Whereas when you're actually competing with like 2-3 other public companies, basically worth, you know, billions of dollars, I'm assuming, that's a different game. So you like, one part is the eyeballs, like you can have the best eyeballs and engagement, but then once they come to try the product, if it's not good or it's not like meeting their standards, or like there's better offers, because I know in that world, like you get these crazy offers, like sign up for FanDuel and you get
exactly. 500 will give you 500. It's the craziest shit in the world.
So I think that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Great analogy. So basically, the burger is like the betting app.
Yeah.
There's standard. You know, there's this public, just like the burgers. When you got publicly listed companies, you got Mickey Dangles, and you got BK, and I think BK is part of Yum Brand. Anyways,
yeah.
Great analogy, dude. Whereas you can sell liquor, just like you can sell Feastables. And not the dog on any of these
It's more of a commodity. It's more of a commodity, yeah. And it doesn't matter as much because, yeah. But
shout out to
I will
Pink
say,
Whitney.
Oh, yeah. The other thing I was going to say, I will say from Portnoy's side, I'm pretty sure he was a massive, like, gambling person. Like, when the actual deal happened originally, it was seen as, like, the perfect deal. It's something I think he wanted for a long time as, like, a good exit for him, or like a good partnership, because he was never going to build a gambling thing himself like that level. So it made a lot of sense. But it is, to your original question, an interesting idea around, like, do we kind of over-egg this thing about how important the content is? Because I think we all appreciate how important content is as a whole, but are we also forgetting that big piece, which I know Austin Reef, our boy from, what's it called? Morning Brew. Just he posted something recently which got me thinking about this as well, where he said, over the next 5 years, every D2C business will have full-time content creators on staff. The best will be comp more than execs and drive more value than anyone else in the business. And like, I saw a few replies to that, and it's kind of an interesting idea. Like, people always talk about like how important it is. And again, I'm obviously a massive fan of content to stand out, but I do think people sometimes realize like that is just like, for a business owner or someone who runs those companies, that's like one channel for them. It's not necessarily this like all-star thing that this is the only thing that matters. There's like other things that have to be working, obviously, the product being the main one. But yeah, I think that's an interesting analogy there, where like it can work for apparel and like merch and stuff like that, but for something like this more complicated, it's going to be a bit more difficult.
Last thought on this, that's such a great point. And it kind of wraps up our journey with, you know, similar to our crypto journey. The palms were, not to say that they're gone. Jack's last week, as I said, never been more of a believer. But, you know, it's good that we can reassess ourselves, people. This is why people come to NIA, for the laughs, for the Dave Portnoy blog post live reads, and for the reassessment of our original awful takes.
There we go. Exactly. Well, anything else on that, boys, before we talk about Jack's NFTs?
I think we should actually talk about the ESPN thing very briefly.
Yeah.
I think the ESPN thing is super fascinating because, so for just a recap, I don't want to make a mistake again of rambling in circles. Let me set the table quickly before my rant. Bob Iger, a longtime ESPN CEO, left during COVID for 2 years, has returned. He's the one that acquired Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, created this empire, right? And Fox was his last big one.
So of Disney though, right? And ESPN is part of it.
Yeah. And ESPN's part of the linear network, the ABC part of Disney. And the point I want to bring up is this. ESPN, Bob Iger said in 2019, we'll never do gambling. So him doing this actually speaks to, we talked about last couple weeks, the condition of Disney. So Disney's stock is down versus every other media stock and the broader market this year. And people are just worried, like, what? They're losing money hand over fist on streaming. The linear networks are going down. Theme parks are the absolute like rock right now. And the question is, okay, if ESPN is getting into gambling, they're many years late now. They missed the gold rush. What does that say about the business, right? And the only two thoughts I'd have here is they have to spend $10 billion to reacquire, or over $10 billion to pay for the rest of Hulu they don't own. Like, they have to buy that, and they're probably looking at ways to dig up the money right now. And they're willing to sell 20 to 30% of ESPN essentially to basically pay off debt and fund these payments they need to make. So I just think ESPN's in a weird spot.
Yeah, 100%. I will say quick plug here because we were talking about gambling. I did actually have the founder of FanDuel on Collab like some time ago, and he talked a lot about like how difficult the business is. The kind of headline there is he sold the company for I think like 500-600 million, and he made zero from it, which is a crazy.
What? Wait, you had FanDuel?
Yeah. Nigel Eccles, good Irish, I think Northern Irish dude.
Okay, walk us through it.
Well, no, I mean, the thing there was he sold the company just before all the laws changed. And so I think they had raised so much money, got to a massive scale. They pretty much invented that market from my understanding, like that style of it. DraftKings came second, did an incredible job growing it, but then eventually had to sell. And I think they had raised so much money that the valuation of the last round was probably higher than the sale price. Or something, because it was worth like over $1 billion at one point. They sold it for less than that, and because of the liquidation stuff, he basically didn't make anything from it. So there's a lot more detail in that interview, but just it's kind of a crazy industry. And I think because in the UK it's been legal for ages. Like I used to use Betfair and all this stuff like at school, like college, but then I think here it's just always been so informal. Like I literally had people at the bar being a bookie sort of vibe. And then eventually when this stuff opened up, it was supposed to be this massive gold rush, but I think it's been really difficult for a lot of them to compete because it's really like the top one or two are now winning. Probably DraftKings, I'm assuming, is the number one. And then the others, I mean, they're spending so much money on acquiring customers, but I don't know how profitable they are, but I'm not like an expert in it. So, but yeah, pretty interesting. You should check that one out too. All right, boys, should we move on to Jack's NFT business, or is there anything else, Trung, on, did you just have something there? All right, Jack, what's been going on in NFT land, mate? I know you announced something with the Proof Collective. I'm pretty sure that's been announced, right?
Yeah, they do this thing. I think it's every 6 months or so. It's this thing called Grails, where they'll do 20. They basically commission 20 pieces of art, and then their Proof Pass holders, I think there's about 1,000 of them, can mint these 20 pieces before they know who worked on them. So it's basically put the art first, have people decide what they want to collect before they know who made it. And then they do this very well-produced show where they reveal all the work. So I went out there, shot a little interview with them, and they did a really nice, I think it was a 2-hour live stream where they went through each piece, introduced each artist, and broke down all the process and thinking behind all the work. So it was good, fun to be involved in that.
Are you able to share the one on screen?
I'll share it, yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's a little nod. It's a little nod to the origins of EV, but the idea being that you can sort of, it's an opportunity to depart from your traditional style because you're not leading with your name. It's a cool format, different restriction than publishing work under your own name. So fun to be involved in, and I appreciate Proof for having me involved.
Sick.
Very cool.
Dude, congrats, man. That's huge.
That's big.
It was fun.
All right. Anything else on that before we move on?
We'll keep going, boys.
All good. All right. Trung, you had this idea to talk about our boy George Mack. Gets mentioned at least once a month now. Maybe not every week, but
George,
maybe every 2 to 4 weeks.
He's
been on a roll.
He's up this content game, and we talked about this.
Yeah, he has, yeah. So go on.
Tee it up, brother.
No, it was just this idea. He had a thread around having 2 phones, a Kale phone and a cocaine phone. So much it kind of went viral, and then I think he was on Fox News or something.
Fox News.
So funny.
It got picked up a bunch of media publications. It was just
so good.
And you, Jack, have you read this?
I read it. Yeah. I need to watch his segment, but yeah, I read the thread.
Bilal, you want to do a quick tee up of what the Kale versus cocaine phone protocol?
Yeah, I think my understanding of it, and you can correct me, was the Kale phone is the one that's kind of, well, let's start with the cocaine phone. That's the one we probably all got in our pockets, where it's got everything on it. It's got the dopamine hit of Twitter or X or Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. It's got, basically all the different
all the
apps.
messaging,
notifications banging off all day.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we all associate with it now. It's addictive, and we're always on it. We're not really in control. And then the other type of thing he's saying it could be is a Kale phone, which has just got stuff that is kind of good for the brain, reading apps, you know, Kindle, Audible,
Note
whatever.
taking.
Note taking where you want to create stuff.
Well, he
so
said
what-
he has physically two.
I think he
physical
said he does,
has
yeah.
two
devices.
physical
Yeah.
phones.
looking
Well, the
like a
reason why I
trap
want to
star.
talk about it is
Yeah.
because I took on this thing. I became a trap star.
Have you got two?
I've tried it for almost a month now. It is incredible.
Oh wait, you
I
legit have
messaged him,
two.
I
That's
wrote
good.
What
about
did you
it.
do? What did you do for the what phone do you have for the Kale
All
phone?
right, so let me break down. I read this thing
Little
from
flip phone
George
vibe.
and Mac. Yeah, just like, well, here. So people are probably wondering, okay, you know what? Let's talk about all the devil advocate stuff. Because, you know, I wrote this article, I published it. And then, you know, the first thing people are going to ask is like, okay, well, you just use a dumb phone. Well, as George says, you want all the benefits, the upside of having a phone, like access to all the world's information, right? And like great note-taking apps. So that's why I wouldn't use a Nokia brick phone or even a Kindle, because Kindle's note-taking and web browser are trash. So like, that's not the solution for me. There has to be something in between cocaine phone and Nokia brick phone, right? And this is the Kale phone. So my Kale phone, so I'll show the listeners, this is my normal phone. This is a 13 Pro, right? So that was a 13 Pro Max. Giant ass screen, beautiful everything, notifications popping off like crazy. And I can't focus. So what I've been finding over the past couple of years, I wonder if this is similar with you guys. Have you guys ever tried reading a Kindle book on your phone?
Mm-hmm.
I'll read one page, check Twitter. One page, go to
Yeah,
YouTube.
you just switch
Like,
over. Yeah.
You just can't, right? You're just so used to it. But ever since I started using the Kale phone, I don't have it here, but it's an old iPhone 8 that my wife's been telling me to sell for years now, but I've just been too lazy to put on Craigslist. Has this ever happened where like you promise your wife you'll sell something, but it's been so many years that now that if you've been listed, you're going to make like $10?
I have
So-
like 3 phones right
Yeah.
next to me right now,
Dude,
and a
There
laptop.
you go, right? Bro, so
Yeah.
I took this old iPhone 8 and I literally just did George's thing. I only put Kindle on it, only put the Notes app. It has a $100 annual talk and text plan, which I only give to my immediate family. And so that's for emergencies. And that's it. So now I have access to good note taking and good browser, way better than Kindle, emergency stuff, just in case. And now I'm on this phone. I'm putting since I started doing this, I read like 4 books in a month, which is unheard of. I haven't read 4 books in years. You know what I mean? I just sit there now and just not distracted by freaking Twitter. And it just,
Oh,
it's
where's
just
your other
like,
phone when this is going on?
I
You
just
leave
put it, wherever, many floors away in a completely different room. And you know, there is literally like science and
How many
research around
floors you
this.
got,
Yeah,
bro?
just-
Jesus.
I'm in a
Living in a
townhouse.
palace over there.
I'm in a townhouse. So it's
Yeah.
it's a narrow townhouse with many floors.
I love it.
But I mean, there's literally research around this, right? Look, I think a couple of researchers from Penn, they basically said if you have your smartphone,
You're from Penn, sorry,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the not the
yeah,
phone from
yeah.
before. Yeah.
Warren Penn,
Yeah,
University of Pennsylvania, and they said if you just have the phone. So this is the experiment they did. There are 2 groups that did cognitive tests. One group had the phone in their pocket. Another group had their phone just outside in another room. The group that had just it in their pocket performed materially worse on these tests. Because I mean, it's not
They're
a shock,
they're
right?
thinking they can get
There's
to it. or
this
something, yeah.
anxiety. Yeah. I
It's just
think
like-
that's for
it's-
sure.
The way
A
they
real
describe
thing.
it is they call it the gravity pull of your phone.
Wow.
And all this is evolutionary, right? Nothing I'm going to say is going to be new to anyone, but let me put it in a box to around this conversation. The slot machine was designed after evolutionary traits. Like the reason why variable rewards, and a variable reward is if you pull the slot arm, you don't know if you're going to win. That is actually better than if you knew when you were going to win, right? Because that curiosity evolutionarily is what gets us to keep searching and finding stuff. Like if we weren't curious and we just knew something every single time, there's no motivation to do anything, right? But whereas the variable reward of the slot machine, which is in the history of capitalism, one of the greatest machines ever to extract money from people, it's not even close. 80% of Las Vegas revenue is from slot machines.
Wow.
Just to give you an idea, right? So this machine, it's a devil. It's a devil in a box. And now we hold it in our hands because instead of the variable reward is, I check my phone, it's like how many times have you guys done this? You open your phone, you check your Gmail. Did anybody email me? Not that it matters. You check your Telegram, you check your WhatsApp, you check your notifications on Twitter, and then you go, oh, let me go to Drudge Report. Let me see what news happened. And since the last 5 minutes I checked, right? It's the same dynamic. It's the variable reward. So with that thing in your pocket, you're going up against the world's highest paid engineers, UX designers, and behavioral psychologists. And that's why when that thing's in your pocket, you're not performing on cognitive tasks. Thoughts?
That's amazing. What?
Rick Burton, baby.
Well, what did Rick say? I forgot.
He said he wants to meet the people that design the algorithms. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Wait,
He wants to knock on their
Go and
door.
stand
I remember.
outside their house. Yeah. Yeah.
Like Elon knocking on Zuck's door, right?
Oh,
Yeah, that's
it's
crazy as
crazy.
well.
I mean, it's the crazy thing is everybody's so aware of it, but the like the fact that George got the invite for the mainstream, the platform there is testament to the fact that this is an issue, right? Everybody resonates with everybody.
I would love for you guys to try. Can we all try it? And like,
I'll do it. I'm gonna dig up an old phone.
Yeah, I'll try.
dig up an
I've
old
got
phone
one
today.
probably over here as well that's broken.
I think
but
what you
will-
guys will notice is that, and he mentions it in his post, he's like, you actually start craving. Because here's the reality. We all are addicted to our phones. We pick it up over 150 times a day, because I don't use my laptop. Mostly I'm like on the phone 9 hours a day, which is kind of
Do you do your writing on the phone? Do you?
a lot of writing on my phone, yeah.
Wow.
So
that's
My
surprising.
laptop's my problem. I can put my phone down, but then I'm on the computer.
I was going
Fair
to say,
enough,
I feel
right?
like Jack might be already better. Jack, do you generally just keep your phone away somewhere?
No.
You're on it a lot as well. All right.
Too much.
Yeah, yeah.
I like when I really need to get something done, I'll put it away and do stuff. But the computer I find is tough too. Because
Really?
so
Okay.
much. Yeah.
my god, so much
I'm
real
good at
estate.
leaving my laptop alone, to be fair. But
I just go for long ass walks.
yeah.
That's
No,
great.
but it is a good
No,
thing
I'm gonna
with the
try
phone.
it. I'll try it. I'll dig one up today.
I'll try that.
Okay,
I got a
beautiful.
little
So we'll come back to
BlackBerry
the month.
somewhere.
Oh my,
Yeah, a
no,
little,
dude. I think you should go old iPhone. So you can, you want all the good stuff. That's the
okay,
point.
I
That's
just won't use it otherwise.
BlackBerry.
yeah.
Get
You
us
want
on
the good
BBM.
stuff.
That was the best time. But
I love it.
we'll try. I will say to our boy George, I think what he did a great job here. Like you said, it's something that people already kind of know, but the way he framed it was really well done. And I also like that he didn't. What I think a lot of the mainstream kind of discussion around this is just one-sided. Around it's evil. There's addiction on the phone, but like in his first line here, it says the smartphone paradox. Your phone is a gateway to the world's best knowledge and the world's best distractions. He's like covering both. It's like having the best teachers, strip clubs, and social clubs in your pocket 24/7. Like, brilliant line, right?
Dude,
So
George, I'm so happy you're writing, man. George,
Oh,
I know
man,
you're
it's
listening. I'm
incredible.
so happy you're
Yeah.
writing again, dude.
yeah, he's killing it. Yeah, likewise. But yeah, I think
Wait, Jack,
that's the good thing. You're
Let
seeing
me
both
ask
sides
Jack
there.
something. Based on what Bilal just said, I want to ask Jack something. Because I think, Bilal, you're headed down that road. How good is the naming of this problem and the solution? Because, Jack, I know you love putting good names to something.
Very
You
good,
said-
man. I mean, that's the only reason they got on Fox News. Like,
Yeah.
let's give it credit. I mean, obviously it's incredibly well unpacked and described, but the title is all that matters, man.
Very
This is
good, yeah.
another paradox, I guess, is the don't judge a book by its cover. Horrible advice. Terrible advice.
That's true. That's true.
Design a better book cover, you know, that's how you should rethink about that idea. But yeah, it's a great example of somebody who has something very practical to deliver, but packaged it in such a way that made it intriguing, accessible, interesting, a little bit like just controversial enough, you know, like even if you called it like the chocolate phone and the Kale phone, no,
Yeah, that's true.
cocaine, man. That's
Cocaine
that's
is
what
the
sent it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
'Cause it
No.
is like drawing out the comparison that this is like a insane stimulant.
Yeah, it is. It's a
It's not
massive
a healthy
problem.
habit to be picking up 150 times a day. If we were to
Right.
use it, yeah.
There we go. All right. So
Yeah, very
yes,
cool, man.
Very,
Shout out
very
to George.
well done.
We need to get him on.
I know.
Open
yeah,
invitation to
100%.
him has been extended,
Well,
and
let's
he's
do
up
this.
for it.
Let's when you guys do it, let's get back a couple months. Bring them on. We've all had months to test it out, and we
That's a
give an
good
honest
point. Yeah,
assessment.
let's
That'd be
do
great.
that.
All right, George. So that will be our commitment to you. We will do your experiment, but you got to come on the pod and talk about
There
it.
we go.
But yeah, that
We'll have
he-
nothing to
he's
say,
been
man.
on
We've been eating kale for the
a-
last 3 months.
Yeah.
No,
we won't
Jack,
even
that's where you're wrong.
record.
We'll have so much to say.
We'll just be
won't
all
used. We're reading the great
Philosophical
books.
debates.
Yeah, it's gonna be
yeah.
all about Marcus Aurelius
Homer.
and Homer.
Oh
We're
my.
not gonna read the Odyssey.
Brilliant. All right, anything else on that? Oh, the only thing I was going to say is, again, I think the Fox News guy had asked him something like, why don't you just put the phone limits on it? And he was like, because everyone extends those. I will say, I definitely extend mine, but I'm okay with being on social media. Like, I'm not like trying to cut off completely either. And I just have it set to 15 minutes for everything. So basically every 15 minutes, there's this interruption to be like, yo, get the hell off TikTok, get the hell off
But it doesn't
Twitter.
work, bro. It
No,
does not work.
but to me, my personal thing is I'm not there trying to create, like, I'm not
Also,
writing
you
all
actually
day.
do just bounce.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just
so
bounce.
I'm all right with it. But there are some times when I do extend it, but I'm kind of, at least, it's just that friction is enough for me personally. But I do agree, it'll be good to test it completely, to have a
Physically.
separate phone. And I will say, even that nighttime, like, just moving the phone to another room, or like I put it like across the room so I can't like reach it straight away. And that sounds really sad, right? But like, it makes such a difference to my sleep. Like,
because you go check what time it is and you're on the thing for 90 minutes.
yeah, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I'm not sleeping. Let me just check. Oh, let me just check this. Or you get
Let
like
me
a
check
buzz or something.
every piece of media that the world has ever created.
And once you're in, and then that light hits that dome, and then
Yeah.
you're awake, man. You can't be doing that. But yeah,
This is another like tie-in with remote work on this. I feel like the environment and why I struggle with it particularly badly, I think, is because it's the same environment that I do my work in, and drawing the distinction between when I'm working and when I'm just like dicking around is very hard to do. You know, it's like, am I reading this because it's going to be a part of something I'm going to produce very shortly, or am I like down some rabbit hole that I shouldn't be down? In the same way that like having physical separation between where you work and where you live is a Lindy pattern, shall we say. That's been,
yeah.
I know people will make the argument that there's a commercial real estate incentives driving that change, but there is something interesting and real about going to a different place to do your work.
It's the same. Now that you said that, I completely agree with you, because I hate that. I love working at home. But I also just said, hey, having your physical phone separated from your Kale phone physically separate.
It's the
It's the same
equivalent for
concept.
you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, what I mean is, though, I would probably benefit too from not being at home all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
exactly to your point.
I mean, the convenience is incredible and depends on your personal situation, but it's also the bleeding of the two is the trade-off, right? It's like, you pick up the phone, you can kind of, I'm working right now, versus like if you are out of the house for 8 hours, there's more of a linear distinction in your mind between the like, oh, I've been to work and I'm coming home and I'm still working, versus like, oh, I have the freedom to work whenever I want, which means I fucking do it 19 hours a day instead of 8.
Yeah. Well, actually,
and 18 of those hours are not really work.
Productive,
they're not super productive.
Well, boys, actually, real quick, last week, the AMA episode we did, there was literally one question we didn't get to, which was this from Andy Marston. And the funniest thing was that Zoom just sent workers back to the office. Did you guys see that? That was
That's
like
funny,
a week ago. But like, just like the whole curve, the midway curve or whatever it's called, that is literally it, man. Like Zoom, the company that helps us all work from home, has sent their employees back to the office. That is pretty jokes. I mean, it's pretty funny in itself. But yeah, Trung, do you have anything on that? Because you like working from home, right? But is there anything where you're like, oh, I really wish I had an extra space to go and do work somewhere?
I think everything Jack said applies to me, where like it all just bleeds together. I make excuses about when I'm productive, and then some days I won't even show up to the dinner table. Like, oh, I have to work, but it's just not true. So I think again, there's a middle ground. I hate commuting so much. Commuting is the worst thing in the history of mankind. If Ramp is listening to this, or boy Ramp Capital, because I know he hates commuting more than anything. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm with Ramp hates commuting. He wrote an entire blog post about how commuting kills you. like identifying research. Like, researchers in Finland have shown that for every mile that you have to commute, it takes like a day off your life or whatever, right? I agree. Having said that, everything Jack said too, it's also not good. To always be like, oh, I'm working, it melts your brain. So what I've noticed is like my particular trade, which is writing primarily, the best writers ever, they all have a place. I could be in their home, But like the ones I really love are the ones that have like I think David McCullough, he's a famous U.S. historian. He's dead now, but he had a shed. He built a shed in his backyard. All it had was a typewriter, and that's all it is. And he just cranked off 4 hours of work. The other guy is Taylor Sheridan. We've talked about. Jack loves Yellowstone. He built a writing shed in Wyoming. So you will love this, Jack. So Taylor Sheridan, after the success of Yellowstone, quite rich, but not stupid rich, but rich enough to buy one of the largest ranches in Texas. But to finance
that's pretty good.
He went to CB. So to finance it, he basically had to deliver 5 TV shows. So he's like, I want this ranch enough, $100 million plus ranch. I'm going to cut these deals with CBS Paramount to make Yellowstone a cinematic universe. And then he's like, now to deliver on that, I need a shed in Wyoming where I can work 16 hours a day, because he writes almost by himself, which is insane.
Wow.
Yeah, he's an animal. But Bilal, answer your question. I think I would benefit from more separation in my life. Maybe the Kale cocaine phone is a first step towards more separation.
Next week,
yeah, love it.
You'll be coming to us from the shed.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Jack, you're in your... You've been
you're
working in
in
this
I got a
room,
little
right?
separate space. Yeah.
Are you actually working from, or it's just a pod you're doing?
No, working. Yeah.
Are you finding it makes a difference?
It's good. It's good. You also, when people are in the house all day too, it's like you sit. The thing that always, I think this is all right to share. I didn't ask earlier about the publicity on this, but like sometimes she's like, I'd rather you just get out of it than be here, like be sitting there like on your computer and like not doing whatever needs to be done. You're just in there. The kids are shouting at you. You're not even listening to them because you're like distracted by something.
Yeah.
And at first I'm like, oh, she don't really mean that she'd rather I be literally out of the building, but she does. She's like, just get out, just leave. and then it feels, it feels like if
you kind of know where you both are.
Right.
It's not like half checked in, not present.
Exactly, man. It's kale or cocaine, baby.
There we go.
Dude,
that's beautiful.
We just nailed it. It's the kale room or the cocaine.
There we go. Now we finally got to a conclusion.
Has a stripping pole in it, glass table with beer, dollar bills everywhere. The other room just literally just has kale plants and maybe like, I don't know, dried beef jerky.
Yeah.
It's why men for hundreds of years have always had that den, to be honest. It's basically the same thing. But anyway, now we're going to need to get George to write part 2 of this, the extension from the phone to the workplace and to other places. So, all right, cool. Last segment here. Good discussion, boys. Trung, do you want to talk about Arnold?
I'm
not even saying his last name. Go for it.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Governor, the
Legend.
Austrian oak. So this is just a recommendation zone. I'm also going to be writing about Arnold's film career on my next newsletter. So I'll bring up 2 things. People go watch this 3-part documentary about Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's the 3 parts about his 3 main careers: bodybuilding, acting, and
politics.
And governor of California. It covers everything, the good and the bad, right? He fathered a child with one of his housemaids or housekeepers. He discusses that. There's a sexual harassment scandals, right, in his government. The governor election lead up covers that. Like very honest and very raw. But what I want to talk about, and I think the reason I mentioned that is because this is like a really good documentary. It's just 360 about his life.
It's the same people that did Defiant Ones, yeah? Yeah,
about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. I just think Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the most impressive human beings we've ever had on this planet. Like, first of all, as a physical specimen, because now when you see bodybuilders, it's so clear that they're roiding, right? Like Arnold did roids, he even admits it.
Oh yeah.
In the documentary, but nowadays it's absurd. It's like you look at these bodybuilders that are winning Mr. Olympia, they don't even look real, right? They look like Marvel characters. Arnold in the 70s was like the greatest specimen. I would argue to say that he is the greatest single male physical specimen that we've ever had on this planet, because he benefited from not too much steroids, but a clean enough diet, and 1970s, all the health changes. just the look of him. I mean, he won 7 Mr. Olympias, 3 Mr. Universes. So that's that part of it. Bilal, you saw the episode, right? Anything stand out from that bodybuilding episode?
Yeah, just it was really cool to see where he came from too. Just that whole
Austria.
small village, like it's just this beautiful place. But he's in the middle of nowhere, and just I remember him talking about he couldn't even get access to much protein, so he would just smash cottage cheese, which is funny. We talk about the midweight curve coming back to cottage cheese right now, but yeah, he was just absolutely just stacked, and like he was so motivated. I also think it was interesting, like he just knew from day one he was gonna have to leave. And I think
to where though, specifically?
To go to America, because that was his...
He has an amazing line from that movie, from the documentary.
Yeah.
He goes, I was born in Austria, but made in America. Like, if he could run for U.S. president, which he can because he's not a naturalized citizen, or no, sorry, he wasn't born in the United States, although I think you can go around those rules. This did feel like a campaign video, right? Like, it just talked about how much he loved America. He's like, I knew I had to go to America. And he did, right? And do you remember this part? Here's the crazy part about he became a billionaire at the age of 25 from real estate investing.
Yeah.
So like
he was doing construction and real estate or something. Yeah.
Like this
people don't even know that. Like he was already rich.
So I'll tell you what's fascinating. You guys will appreciate this. Bilal, you might have remembered it. Actually, you didn't see the end of the second episode. He says the first half. So he quotes Edmund Hillary, Sir Edmund Hillary, who was the first person to climb Everest along with Tenzing Norgay. You got to shout out to Tenzing. A lot of Western media likes to forget about Tenzing Norgay, the Sherpa that took Edmund Hillary up there. By the way, Tenzing...
I don't know who any of these people are, to be honest, but...
You don't know Tenzing Norgay? So the first 2 people that climbed Everest, yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay.
You know what, Rafa? Can you do this, Rafa? Hold a picture of Tenzing Norgay. And the listeners, Google Tenzing Norgay. He has probably the greatest smile in the history of mankind, like an infectious smile.
Oh, yeah, I see him. Look at him. What a legend.
Everyone, look, dude, if you go to Google Images, every image is him smiling. And this is the type of guy that climbs Everest, right? So Arnold quotes Edmund Hillary, and he's speaking about his own career, how he was never satisfied. He was always moving to the next thing. And he has a great line in there. He's like, I see a lot of people nowadays, they have all these feelings, and they wake up and say, oh, how do I feel today? Like, oh, what's my mood? He's like, when you have like things to accomplish, you don't have time to think about that, right? And he's like, and for this guy, he just every step of the way, methodical. This is my goal. Here's how I'm going to get there. So he wrote this. This is a quote that he had from Edmund Hillary. So Edmund Hillary climbed Everest, and this is what Hillary said after climbing Everest. While on top of Everest, I looked across the valley towards the great peak of Makalu and mentally worked out a route about how it could be climbed. It showed me that even though I was standing on top of the world, it wasn't the end of everything. I was still looking beyond to other interesting challenges. So like that mentality is incredible. Like Jack Butcher was not satisfied with Visualized Valley. Next thing, right? Move on. What's the next thing? You think Bilal is done with after charity water? No, we're doing Creator Lab. We got this. It's always, I love this mentality of like, and it's true though, right? You don't have to like, do you think about old man in the 60s and 70s during the Vietnam War was wondering about pronouns, right? It's like he had bigger things to deal with that day, right? Like this is what I mean. Is like, I love how Arnold kind of touched on it. It's like society when all the Maslow's hierarchies are taken care of, you have time to waste about this thing is wasteful. He talks about over and over again. It's like just do stuff. Figure out what you're trying to do and just fucking do it. So the thing about his movie career, and I just want to emphasize how tactical and strategic he is about everything. And he is always thinking about moving to the next thing. So when he started his film career, it took him 12 years to have a breakout role. So 1970 was his first role. He's Hercules. And the crazy thing is, to give you an idea how not a movie star he was in 1970, this is age of 22, one of the biggest bodybuilders in the world, nobody in Hollywood cared about him. They named him in the movie, starring he was Hercules, they called him Arnold Strong. That was his name. Nobody gave a shit about him. 12 years later, he does Conan the Barbarian, his first big. His agent, Lou Pitt, and him have a strategy from this point on. Every single movie I do now, I will expand my audience by 10%. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to think, well, I'm going to pick up projects that has the opportunity to expand my audience by 10%. Typically what that means is he wants to do more jokes in films. So Commando, if you guys ever seen Commando, one-liners everywhere. Like, he kills a guy in an airplane, and when the stewardess comes by, he goes, "Sorry, my friend's dead tired." Like, he just drops all these one-liners, right? So starts adding comedy in films, or one-liners. The next film he does, next big film does is Predator. He leads a team. It's in a jungle, exotic location. Expand the audience. But then in 1988, and this is the crux of my story and the reason I want to bring it up, is speaking to how he's always moving along. So if I were to ask you guys, what do you think the most money Arnold ever made on one film is?
How much?
No, what film was
Which
it where
one?
he made the most money?
You would say Terminator, but it's
Yeah,
not, right?
but-
It's like Daddy
but
Daycare or some
It's
shit.
that one with the kid, or what was it?
Kindergarten
With
Cop.
Kindergarten
Kindergarten,
No,
Cop,
you
yeah.
nailed it. It's actually the movie Twins.
Twins,
Like,
that's
you
the
guys
one
are
I'm
right.
thinking
It's
of.
comedy. So this is the point. No one wanted Arnold to be a comedic actor, right? He's like, dude, you're the biggest action star in the world. Like, why do you want to do comedy? It's because only under 30 males were watching his films. He's like, I'm leaving half the world's audience not caring about me as an artist, which is great. He's thinking about this. So he goes to...
I must just really quickly say, when I said a kid, I was in my head, I had Danny DeVito in my head, and I
Yeah,
called him a kid
he
because
said, yeah.
I meant the little guy. But
You
yeah,
mean
go on.
the short comedian? Yeah.
But go
So,
on, yeah.
but what do you, first of all, what do you guys think about this idea of like how strategic it is? Expand your audience by 10%. Have you guys ever thought about that? It's like, you have a little bit of success and you're like, what can I do to like maybe open it a bit up more, right? We all talk about niche is great, but if you have a bit of success, you have a
Well, I think
creative freedom.
I think most people resist that because they try and, like, I don't know. I think the common excuse is like, you don't want to compromise your art, or you don't want to, this is the kind of thing I make, or this is the kind of person that enjoys my stuff. And it is, I think, for anybody that produces something, maybe it is less common for you to think about changing the product to get more people to care. It's more about like, get more people to care about the thing I'm already doing, which
Right.
is in many cases is like, that reaches its natural conclusion pretty quickly, right? The emphasis, or the thing that moves the needle is you making things that speak to different types of people. So yeah, I think it's like very shrewd, but it's also, it did feel like it comes from, I don't know, all that stuff felt like he was still having a good time doing it, right? It wasn't like he was compromising to do
Right.
it. Like like all of the one-liners and the funny stuff, it like kind of became his brand over time. Yeah, it's a lot of people would benefit from thinking that way, but I think it's a very rare and unnatural way to think, hence why this guy was able to accomplish so many ridiculously disparate things in his career.
I think your point is the inertia, right? People don't want change. It's like, and what I will say is in a lot of situations, maybe it's fine just to saturate your market. In a lot of situations, it is. So actually, I'd love to ask you specifically about, you have built audiences in different realms. Now that we're talking about Arnold and conquering and into different worlds, how do you see any of that applying to how you kind of gone from, primarily design to now crypto?
I think I definitely could do with a bit more of that mentality at times, where you have validation for something that you sometimes mistake for, you only have permission to keep doing what you're doing, when what it's really doing is like getting you this little overlap into a new world that you could start to think about. Like, people have asked me, the most obvious example that comes to mind is like, do stuff for kids, like go a little bit more, simple, and yeah, dial down the cleverness of some of this stuff, and, make things that would be helpful, interesting, useful to a parent and a kid. It's like, I have loads of ideas how to do that, but I'm like, does that taint the, visualize value kids? Does that become like a, and it's not, it will be an awesome project. And I think the people who have supported the main thing would be very excited to see that. But I am able to talk myself out of it, or say to myself, is that the best use of my focus, resources, whatever else? And that's the Arnold thing. I haven't even watched this film, but I think what's even more impressive is doing it by yourself. Or like, he is the asset in that scenario, right? Like, he's showing up to the set, shooting the film, then he's campaigning as a politician. He's going to the gym 3 times a day. It's not like, to use an example from this episode, Portnoy, who has this insane work rate, but you cannot physically accomplish Barstool Sports in the way that it grew without the other faces that represent the brands and show up and make the content and stuff. What's so impressive about Arnold is that obviously there are people around you, but you've built it all around yourself.
It's crazy. It's insane.
It's wild.
Yeah, he's the brand still. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, he's so fucking impressive, man. I can't get over how impressive this guy is. So
Logan Paul.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
it's like this. That's like the modern equivalent, right? I'm trying to think of, or Mr. Beast or something, but they're not out in all these different directions. But I saw that video of him doing wrestling the other day. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
it's insane. He's
absolutely
so
mental,
physically talented,
just insane. So there are people in that realm, I guess, and I think some of these guys have political aspirations too. I wonder if there's some deep inspiration being taken from the career of Arnold. Probably.
100%.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Well, so like, let me get back to 1988, and you guys will appreciate this. And it's a great lesson for everyone. It's like, he wanted to make a comedy, and so he teamed up with Ivan Reitman, comedy legend, who unfortunately passed away last year, and Danny DeVito, one of the biggest comedians or television comedians at the time, the show Taxi. He goes to the studio. He's like, "Here, three of us want to make a comedy." And they're like, like, we don't really see it. We don't really see it, Arnold. Like, it's a funny concept. Like, you don't look anything like Danny DeVito. You're twins, quote unquote. So Arnold's like, okay, here's the thing. It's like, you let us de-risk it for you. We'll take zero salary. So none of us will take any salary, all back end. So instead of this film costing you 60 mil at our market rates, you can make it for 20 mil. But we want points. So the three of them split 37.5% back end merch, DVDs, home video DVDs. And I don't have to tell you guys what happened. The movie made $220 million international. Arnold, inflation adjusted, made $100 million on this movie. And I think the big takeaway I want to take from is Jack kind of brought up is like, there's this idea of inertia, right? And you see these people that accomplish so many things, like I don't think Arnold for a second even thought, oh, I'm stuck in my thing. He's like, okay, what's the next thing? How do I do it? Right? That mentality is incredible. It's very difficult to have for sure, but he clearly had it. And the idea that we also talk about creativity and money, we talked about it with Blumhouse Productions, is like, that's it, right? Do you take more money from someone, you're losing creative control. Like, the less money you take, the more creative control you have. And this can be for we see it with VCs, right? It's like when Masayoshi Son went to Adam Newman for WeWork, which looks like it may no longer be a current concern. He's like, okay, Adam Newman had a decent business, but then Masayoshi Son gave him $10 billion, completely changes what they're going to do, right? Buys an indoor pool and all this crazy, and makes a little, we talk about kids, makes a freaking kindergarten school, right? So, Arnold, I would highly recommend people to watch this documentary. I think it was incredibly well done, and I think he's one of the most impressive human beings that we've ever had. Flaws, positives, the whole nine.
Yeah,
respect.
Love it.
Watch it.
I will too. Yeah, I've watched 1.5 episodes on the plane, and I'll watch the second half for sure. Beautifully put, Trung. Thanks for summarizing that, mate. Anything else, boys, before we wrap it up?
Oh, that was a great app, boys.
Good app in the end. Yeah, beautiful. All right, hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.